America, and welcome to the Home Front. I'm so glad you guys joined us. We have a wonderful lineup in store for you today. We're going to bring on later in the show Chris Burgard. Guys, he is the one that did the War on Truth. We are just breaking open the truth right now when it comes to January 6th. Everything you've basically been told is a lie. You come here for your news from now on. Guys, I want to have you guys watch just a quick preview of the War on Truth.
Antifa! Antifa!
Let me through, I got a knife.
We have not to date seen any evidence of anarchist violent extremists or people subscribing to Antifa.
This guy is not just undercover, okay? He is committing violence.
Everybody that was on the ground on J6, police officers and demonstrators alike, were all set up.
They have this mystery story that we're some kind of domestic terrorist group.
Why are you going to prison for 8 months?
For my documentation of January 6th.
They're being punished as criminals.
When the United States government comes at you with everything they have, it can be very intimidating.
They're trying to instill fear.
This is intimidation, just like the Gestapo.
This was not a no-knock warrant. I could have killed somebody because they didn't identify themselves.
On May 17th, the truth fights back.
Oh, boy. Well, welcome to the Home Front. This is, it's a heavy topic. It's something that I'm realizing nobody really wants to talk about and allow people to express, those that were there, ask the questions, be able to watch the video with audio as I'm learning. I'm learning a lot.
You know, Michelle,
Yes.
I don't think most Americans understand how heavy a topic January 6th is.
Right.
I cried this entire film.
Yeah.
I was so angry and so saddened by what I was watching. It's one thing to know it and to suspect it, that our government has been weaponized against its people.
Yeah.
But to actually see it in real time and hear from witnesses, it struck me.
Yes.
And I could not sleep.
Yes.
I was so angry. I didn't even know who to call to like just express how upset I was. And I'm like, this is the America that I signed up for.
Yeah. Right.
This is the America I put boots on for.
Yeah.
This is the America I raised my right hand to defend, and our the people that we have hired to protect us from this same weaponization that we are currently witnessing right now.
Right.
This, and they took the same oath I took, like beyond pissed.
Hey, girl, I think we're all right there with you. And we, you know, if you're watching this at home and you're not sure really about the subject matter, how much you know about it, you will be where Allie is by the end of this show.
Yes.
Because to see, you know, we all kind of joke about the weaponization of the justice system and our government against Donald Trump or even, you know, General Michael Flynn. We know it's happening, right? Most of America does not realize that it's already happening against everyday Americans, especially if you have a viewpoint that's not what they want it to be. I don't want to hesitate any longer. I want to bring on our very special guest. I want to welcome to the Home Front, Chris Burgard. Chris, thank you so much for being here on the Home Front. We appreciate you being here.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, you know, we have a lot of questions, I think, about the documentary. We want to hear more about what's going on with you. But I want to ask, so you're no different than the average American, right? You love your country. You went on and did some things, as I understand it, in Hollywood. Tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you came to be at the events there on January 6th.
Gosh, backstory. I came to Hollywood in 1985, 84. I was one of Matthew Broderick's dance doubles for Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
No way!
Had a fun career in Hollywood, went from acting to writing to directing and producing. I got blacklisted in Hollywood for 3 years starting in 2007. In 2005, I made a movie called Border, which screened for both houses of Congress, and it laid out everything you're seeing now. We predicted this 20 years ago. And for that, my wife and I were treated as villains in the Hollywood. People I knew for 20 years wouldn't return my phone calls. And that's when God's kind of stepped in, and I got hired by a guy named Herman Cain to be his number 3 or 4 hire as he ran for president. I was his strategic media director and made all his commercials, did all his branding, and worked with him just day in and day out. And that was just a godsend. That let me understand how the country really works. When we made Border, people on the right and the left were coming together saying things like, I don't want to see a narco-terrorist war in the United States. I don't want to see people being killed in Mexico. I don't think women should be being raped on the border. I don't think we should be trafficking children. And that brought people together. And this is 20 years ago. And that's why they tried to destroy me and my wife. And that was the part of the education, the learning. Since then, I went on to do a movie in Central America when they were trying to take over the Honduras government. And I ended up doing these documentaries about the truth. I've gotten to do 3 movies with my partner, Nick Searcy, who, if you don't know Nick, he's just an amazing guy. He was one of the bravest guys in Hollywood. He and I have both escaped now. He's in Kentucky and Tennessee. I'm in Texas. But we made a movie. The first movie we made about January 6th is called Capital Punishment. Everything they told you about January 6th was a lie. And we were in D.C. on January 6th with my wife, my daughter, and Nick, not because we thought we were going to make a movie about it, but just because we felt it was an important day of history, and we both felt strongly called to be there that day. And when I started seeing things that were happening that day, it was deja vu for me back to Honduras when they tried to take over the government down there. My bells and whistles were going off. And we ended up making a movie about it, Capital Punishment, because we didn't want them to steal that day in history. They had already stolen the government. And because we made that movie Capital Punishment, last summer I was making another movie on the border that also screened for Congress, Death County and the River Broken Dreams, with Tom Homan, who's Trump's ICE director. And he may be our next border czar. We'll see what happens. But while I was making that, the people talked to us about making a sequel to Capital Punishment. I just didn't quite have the vision, and I resisted. And God's a funny boss, because first he whispers in your ear, and if you don't listen to him, he taps you on the shoulder. And then if you still don't hear him, he punches you in the gut. Well, my gut punch was having the FBI come a quarter mile into my ranch here in Texas to let me know that I was a subject in a federal investigation, as a terrorist threat to the United States of America, because I made Capital Punishment. And I took that personally. My dad was law enforcement. He was a graduate of the 109th session of the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. I'd spent 20 years working with law enforcement on the border, and I make movies. I don't hurt anybody. So when after we got things settled down a little bit with the attorneys and the investigation, Nick and I were talking, and he's like, they're going to do this to you. What are they doing to everybody else out there? And that was personally for me part of the inspiration to make this movie. I know it's kind of selfish, but for me, the best defense against the FBI and my own government was going on offense. And the best way to go on offense is just to document the truth of that day, what happened, and what's been happening since. So, and that's how we came to make The War on Truth. And it's just, right now, it is the most censored movie in the United States of America. The stuff that's going on to keep people from seeing this movie would just knock your socks off.
Well, and that was something that I kind of wanted to ask you as you prepared to do not just the Capital Punishment documentary, but this one as well. What kind of things did you come up against, whether on social media or even just on YouTube? Is this was something, Chris, that I found was hard to find if you don't have the exact web address to go to. And I assume that's what you're noticing.
Yeah, and it's funny because before I did Capital Punishment, and now it's even worse with this movie. If you Googled me, you have like 7 or 8 pages on Chrome showing who I am and what I do. Now it's tough to find me on the internet, and it's almost impossible to find this movie. That's just a small part of the censorship. The algorithms are against us that way. There's a good Marine in the movie, J.D. Rivera. We tell his story. When the movie opened on May 17th, JD had a TikTok account, 110,000 people. He put posts up every day just about being a Marine, being a dad, talking about Jesus. And he put a post up saying, hey, I'm in this movie, go see it. Boom, his TikTok account was gone the next day. We had a pastor, week before last, 1.3 million followers on Facebook. He said, hey, every American needs to see this movie. Boom, He's gone, and so is 1.3 million followers. This is the kind of stuff we're seeing. The algorithms affecting us selling the movie online. Let's just take one platform, Rumble. 83,000 people go to see the trailer, and only a handful of people end up watching the movie. And in our experience, it's just been the opposite. People see the trailer like, oh my gosh, I want to see the rest of the movie. Right. So it's the censorship is real, the deep state is real, and when you see the left doubling down that all they throw at President Trump is, he led this bloody insurrection. This movie knocked down 3.5 years of propaganda. In the first movie, and this is why these movies are so dangerous, because you have to understand, knowledge is power, and we're living in the greatest information war this country's ever seen. So the first movie, Capital Punishment, when people on the left saw the movie, some of them didn't cry when Ashley Babbitt died, but they cried when her dog died. And then they had this huge come to Jesus movement. Oh my gosh, they're lying to me about this. What else are they lying to me about? Same thing when we do the War on Truth. The movie opens up as Trump finishes at the Ellipse, and the Village People song is playing, YMCA, and everybody's dancing. And people ask me, hey, how did you edit it to make it look like, people were dancing to YMCA and you had dancing nuns? How did you get that in there? It's like, because that's what was happening.
You never switch up rally? Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly.
But for 3.5 years, they've been told that people rushed from the rally and ran all the way to the Capitol to attack the Capitol building. And there was a great guy named Joseph Goebbels, and he said that if you make a lie big enough and repeat it often enough, it becomes the truth to the state and then to the people. That's the same playbook they're using here. And I know I'm rambling, but if I can give you one example that proves that in real time, they've run with the mantra, and the mainstream media still runs with the mantra. You've heard Biden say it. You've heard Christopher Wray say it. You've heard the media say it. 5 law enforcement officers died on January 6th. 5 cops were killed on January 6th. All right, they knew that was untrue from day one, and they keep repeating that. That's a lie. Officer Brian Sicknick, who everybody we interviewed, he said he was an outstanding man. We're sorry to see him go, but he died on January 7th of natural causes. Mm-hmm. The other 4 police officers who died weeks and months later from suicide. Who did die that day was Kevin Greason, Benjamin Phillips, Roseanne Boylan, and Ashley Babbitt. But the media never talks about that. The J6 panel never talks about that. So when you see the highest reaches of government lying to the face of the American people, you have to ask yourself why. And that's where they get caught, because the cover-up is always what trips them up, worse than the crime.
Absolutely. And now they're getting so brazen that they're just kind of letting things slip. They're not even trying to hide a lot of the cover-up. Panel, did any of you guys have any specific questions for Chris on this?
I did. So I wanted to know, Chris, how has your life changed because of the January 6th event?
Well, when I was making the Tom Homan movie about the border, the day before the FBI came to my ranch, I was on the phone to LA with my editor, and we were talking through a segment where I had 3-letter guys that had been in Central America in 2015, and we documented Joe Biden starting what is arguably the largest child trafficking organization machine that we've ever seen, and how we were going to lay that out, and the proofs and the statistics to prove that. A couple hours later, he's walking around in West LA, and somebody came up and shot him in the back. Then the next day, the FBI coming here, and the pressure that puts under your family. When your family, because my wife and daughter were friends with people from the first movie, where we'd become friends with 12-year-old girls that were dragged out in the cold. 12-year-old girls dragged out from their house after breaching their property in handcuffs. The fear in my wife and my daughter's eyes. Dad, should I keep the dogs in because is the FBI coming in tonight? I don't want them to kill my dogs, Dad. When you can't take, as a dad, when you can't take the fear out of your wife and your daughter's eyes of their own government in the United States of America, that's life-changing. That shifts everything. And then you know, and it's not. And is it paranoid to think people are watching you when people are watching you? You know, you live like that. You know, under you know, the Terrorism Act. Anybody I talk to, you know, they can read my emails, they can read my folks, my texts, and then anybody I talk to, they can go and look at them too as well. The FBI, when they first came to me, you know, I said, hey, I'll talk to you. You know who my dad was. You guys know me. You've Googled me. No problem. I just want my attorneys there, and I want to film the whole interview so nothing can be taken out of context. So I got my team together to put him in contact with the FBI. Then I get a call saying, hey, Chris, we're just down the road, the next county over. And you have to understand, they didn't go to my sheriff and let them know they were investigating somebody in his county, which is kind of an FU in law enforcement. You're saying to the sheriff, we don't trust you with this information. So then when they wanted me to go to the next county over for this interrogation, you know, I'm like, excuse me, you know, no, I've done a couple projects with Mike Flynn. I saw what you guys did to him. You're not going to Flynn me. That's not what this is about. And so how does your life change? Your life changes because the government that you grew up loving, supporting, and working with for 62 years, you now have to look at through a completely different parameter. And then when we did the film, and here's where the title, The War on Truth, came from. We're talking to people that are in prison, people like Colt Maccabee, people like Master Sergeant Jeremy Brown, that are waiting over 2 years for a trial. 2 years in the United States of America. And what we're seeing over and over is these guys are hardcore Christians. They're people of faith. And, you know, I talked to my old pastor, Rob McCoy. I said, and Nick and I asked him, you know, is this a war on Christianity? And at the same time, we had FBI whistleblowers telling us the FBI was making a registry of Christians. And so we're like, is this a war on Christianity, on Christians? And what Rob said is yes and no. Christians are being targeted because as Christians, we're called to stand up for the truth. And when you're trying to take over and fundamentally transform a country from a republic into a totalitarian state, the people that stand up for the truth, the people that believe that their liberty comes from God, and that's endowed in the Constitution, they are targeted first because those are the ones who need to shut up and get out of the way. And that was the second part of what you saw on January 6th. January 6th was a two-part operation. It was years in the making. And the first primary part of it was to stop and make sure there was no investigation into the disputed ballots in the swing states. That worked brilliantly. No one ever investigated it. There was momentum at the beginning, just before the breach happens. The first Bruce comes in there and they stand up and they make a motion for a delay for transparency. The House stands up. There's a standing ovation. Boom, a flare goes up over the Capitol. Within 2 minutes, the breach happens. They stop for 3 hours and 18 minutes. When they come back, no one is contesting the election. So that was phase one of what they needed to get done. Phase two, what they needed to get done was to fundamentally transform the United States of America by making half of the country to dehumanize them. You know, gone from deplorables, the MAGA supporters, deplorables, to now bloody insurrectionists. And if you dehumanize a population, then the rest of the country doesn't mind when they hear people are in prison for 2 years waiting for trial. Or they don't mind when guys like Coy Griffin, an ex-pastor, is arrested in 9 days, no call to his family, to his attorney, 3 weeks in solitary confinement for praying at the Capitol, not even going into the building. These are things that should outrage every American. But once you've dehumanized let's call them the enemy, which is what they're trying to do, is to work America against each other, then they can step all over the Constitution, and people just think they're doing it in the name of safety. And as Ben Franklin said, those that give up liberty for security are neither free nor safe.
Yeah, they lose both.
Chris, I have a question for you. So we've seen in the past, like BLM with their riots, and I have not seen the FBI track the people who have actually riot and destroy people's stores. And you look at what happened in the Capitol with people who are peacefully walking around with their flags, and the FBI is tracking them like crazy. What do you think their true intention is in doing that? Is it because they want to scare Americans to not stand up for what they believe in? Or do they just want to completely silence us? Can you expound more on that for me, please?
Good.
Well, it's absolutely to scare the heck out of you. I mean, it's not too different from what they did in medieval times, when the King of England would come in and invite all the Scottish chieftains and clan leaders into a barn and say, we're going to have this parley, we're going to meet, we're going to talk about how to avoid war, and then he burns the barn down and hangs all the members of the opposition. That's exactly what you saw happen on January 6th. Now, when Christopher Wray sits before Congress multiple times and says that he saw no evidence, the FBI saw no evidence that there was any Antifa, BLM, or anarchist activity involved in the violence that day. Okay, so let's look at that. We saw them. All my three-letter buddies that were there saw them. All my military buddies that were there saw them. We filmed them. You see them changing out of Black Bloc Antifa clothes into Trump clothes. They approached me, my wife, my daughter. They tried to get us to attack the police. When I went to remember at this time I'm thinking FBI. Hey, you guys, you're my dad's buddies. I worked with you guys on the border. You got bad guys trying to get us to attack the police. Do you want me to show you who they are? No, we're good. Well, do you want to take a report? Do you want to see the pictures? I can show you. No, we're good. Thank you. And I'm thinking, okay, fine. I guess they got it all handled. But then what you find out is afterwards they didn't have it all handled. And when Christopher Wray goes in front of the country and says that, he either is the most ineffective leader of the most powerful law enforcement agency in the country, or he's lying. And if he's lying, that makes him part of cover-up, and it makes you want to investigate. Is he part of was he one of the architects of what happened that day? Interesting thing about the FBI, there's a guy named Bobby Powell in the movie. Bobby Powell is an independent journalist. He was a Marine as a kid, and he was there that day, and he had a leather jacket on and a big helmet that said press. And what he filmed was he filmed two very suspicious fellas. You could say they're military types, or they were buffed up law enforcement, but they were masked up, glasses, earpieces in here. One was holding open the door to the Capitol and pushed Bobby in. The other one was breaking the glass and pushing people into the Capitol building until Bobby called him out and put his camera on him, and you saw press written across there. All of a sudden, the guy does a 180 and pretends like, oh, he's defending the window. And
so he was
when Bobby tried to get that footage out, people came after him. And according to Bobby, he had a meeting. He was called to a meeting with a friend of his who's a former congressman. And in this meeting, they offered him $100,000 to lose the film. He said no. Then they offered him $200,000. And he says, no, I want to save the country. You shut me up, you're going to have to kill me. And according to Bobby, this former congressman, then just said, well, that can be arranged. Then a few weeks later, Bobby Powell is speaking at a rally for Master Sergeant Jeremy Brown, and the sheriff's department catches a trans individual with pipe bombs that was there to blow up the stage where Bobby was speaking. So these are things that we experienced making this movie.
Wow. Yeah.
I was there at that rally when that whole situation happened. And we had so many questions about that. Like, why is there no investigation into this person that just randomly showed up with pipe bombs? Like, there's no further investigation. Right. You're not going to question anyone that was there. I didn't get a phone call. I didn't get anything. And I had video of me there, I had pictures of me there. I posted that I was there, and I didn't get anything. Yeah. Did you see this person? That's where I first met a couple of people that are currently sitting in office right now. So it's like, what, at what length are they willing to go to protect their narrative? And clearly they're going to a very extremist kind of length where they're willing to bribe you, shut you up in any way, shape, or form. And that's really scary.
Or take your life.
Which is,
Chris, we're gonna take just a quick commercial break. I want to keep you on, but I'm gonna tell our home front audience, guys, we're gonna be back with more from the War on Truth. This is a really crucial. We're gonna get into some of the actual events that are described in the movie. You don't want to miss this, so stay tuned.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, my name is General Mike Flynn, and I'm here to talk about a limited time offer of subscriptions to Patriot.tv and how you can become a member of our Patriot Defenders subscription club and become a member of Patriot.tv. Really, it's America's network. I call it the home of truth. And you can do that for only $9.99 a month. It's a great deal by itself, but what I'm gonna walk you through here in these next few seconds is a couple of package deals that we have that are unbelievable. The next membership was the annual membership at $99 that you can save right away. You save $20 if you come in at the annual subscription rate. The best deal that I think that people ought to seriously consider is the 2-year membership at $159. And it includes a special edition of my recently released documentary, Flynn, Deliver the Truth, Whatever the Cost. So along with the 2-year membership, the 2-year subscription will send you a DVD combo of the film, plus an option to stream the movie online, as well as exclusive interviews of Tucker Carlson, Devin Nunes, and myself. So go to the home of truth, right? Go to patriot.tv today, sign up, seriously consider the 2-year subscription rate. It's an unbelievable savings. I think it's a total savings of about $70 from just signing up on a monthly or a annual basis. So thank you very much for your support. Patriot.tv is America's new network. Thank you.
Hi, this is Raj Doraisamy. We are right here in the middle of it all, here at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And all around us, I see Americans that are excited about the possibility of what might happen in November. I also see a huge presence of law enforcement dedicated to keeping us safe and secure. This is really a pivotal time, as you know, where people that previously may not have even known about the Republican National Convention are actually now here. People who are concerned about where the country is going, even though they don't have any interest in politics whatsoever. But there's a lightning rod moment when the President of the United States and an assassination attempt was happened, and it happened by a 20-year-old young man who somehow penetrated the most elite security organization in the world. It's a telling example of the breakdown in our government.
Hi, America. Welcome back to the home front. We have the wonderful Chris Burgard on with us. We've been talking about the events of January 6th. Guys, you're not going to be able to hear this explained anywhere, really, especially not on lamestream media. That's why we're covering it, because there are real stories, real people behind what you're hearing, the narrative that you're hearing, and it's an incorrect narrative for the most part. Guys, I want to go back to Chris. Chris, in the movie, one of the first things that struck me, obviously, the way you tell the stories, you get to know these families that are impacted and affected, and they're just like you and I. They just wanted to go and do what their First Amendment right allows them to, and be able to protest peacefully. But the story that really brought this into that cover-up mentality was hearing from Sarah McAbee describe what had happened to her husband. And all they wanted to do, they were portraying that, you know, he was attacking this police officer. In his trial. All they wanted to do was to hear the audio. Yeah. They wanted, I think that's like an informed, that's being informed before you make a decision, right? They would not allow this video to be brought in as evidence with the audio. But when you play the audio, it's very clear that this police officer, he's saying, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you get up. And the police officer says, I know you are. Thank you, man. And, you know, he helps him up. It completely debunks everything. There are little nuggets like that throughout this whole film that blow your mind. Tell us a little bit more about some of the stories of the people that you see in your documentary.
Well, you're absolutely right. Colt McAbee. And the thing about Colt McAbee is law enforcement officer. He was a Tennessee deputy, sheriff's deputy for years. So he was there that day, and you hear him when you hear the audio. He's saying, I'm trying to help you get, not needing to help the officer up. He informs the front line of police that are there that he's there to help. And you see him on camera giving CPR to Roseanne Boylan after she was beaten to death. Colt firmly believes, as does Sarah, that the reason he was in prison for over 2 years without a trial was because, as a law enforcement professional, he could testify firsthand to the what went wrong that day and why Roseanne Boylan should still be alive. So they effectively shut him up by sticking him in prison, and he's not the only person there. You know, Ashley Babbitt's mom, Mickey, she says that, you know, the J6 is the day that the federal government turned on the American people. They beat them, they killed them, and then they locked them up to shut them up. And as y'all were saying earlier, you're talking about Master Sergeant Jeremy Brown, another guy that's in prison for 2 years. He never went in the Capitol building. He was in prison for 2 years. And I asked him, I said, why are you going through this? What's happening? And Master Sergeant Jeremy Brown was the poster soldier for the Green Berets. He was 20 years. He was highly decorated. He retired at the top of his game. And he said to me, I'm paraphrasing, but he said to me, Chris, the United States government spent millions of dollars training me on how to take down a country from the inside out. Yep. If I wasn't in prison right now, I'd be on every podcast, talking to every journalist I could, doing every television show I could to explain to them exactly what kind of an operation January 6th was and what's going to be done to the country next to take this country down, because that's what I did for my whole career.
And I want to touch just a little bit on the conditions that they're not, a lot of them, they're not even charged. They're awaiting trial. So they're not allowed to, to go home and await trial. They're being held there. But the conditions, from what I hear, are atrocious. Can you speak to that?
Well, they were absolutely simply atrocious. As Chris talks about, he's a cancer victim. They let him out so he could get treatment. He wasn't getting treatment when he was in prison, and he was saying, they would turn the water off for the whole weekend. The toilets would back up. They would overflow with feces. You turn the water on, you're supposed to drink out of this water spigot, and sheets of mold would come out. The bugs, Coy Griffin talking about putting his food down, which is horrible food, to wipe the bugs off his bed, sits down, picks his tray up, and the bugs are all over his food. In the United States of America, these kind of things are happening. It's designed to break you, and it has gotten much better thanks to Louis Gohmert, Troy Nels, Margie Taylor Greene, and a few others. But again, to understand what an operation this is and what a war this is on the United States of America and the Constitution, you have a great congressman, Troy Nels, out of Houston here in Texas. So he is ex-military, decorated. He was a sheriff's deputy for years and years before he became a congressman. When he started digging into this on behalf of the people imprisoned on J6, when he started conducting his own investigation into what was happening while the faux J6 propaganda trial was going on, under Nancy Pelosi, the Capitol Police did a Watergate on him. It was over a Thanksgiving weekend. They mistakenly thought that his office was empty, but he had one staffer that stayed in D.C., was working over the weekend, and caught Capitol Police disguised as construction workers breaking into Troy's office and filming and taking pictures of things. And if you ask Troy, he says that was because they were looking for material to try and blackmail him with to shut him up and to stop his investigation of J6. That's the kind of stuff that's going on in the United States of America. Now, that should be front page freaking news, Capitol Police breaks into the office of a sitting congressman. Yeah, you've never heard of this.
Wow.
Chris, I have two statements I want to make. I don't know if Bill Gates was the one that said this, but I remember a while back I was watching or reading something online. It said, you will not own anything and you will be happy. And from watching the documentary, a lot of these people that were flagged by the FBI, they lost their businesses. A lot of them lost their businesses. A lot of them barely have any money. And so what do you think the intention of the government is to do to the people? Is it to just take away everything? So then that way we won't have anything and then we'll be happy. And then I also have another thing I want to mention. With your movie, I tried to look it up on Amazon. It wasn't on there. General Flynn movie is also on Amazon. Do you guys have any problems with Amazon right now? Because that could be a great way for other people to also be able to watch it on Amazon too.
Here's, you brought up a conversation that we have a lot more time to talk about, but I love where you're going. This is, you have to understand, and General Flynn does a great job of explaining this. And in our original kind of movie was 7 hours, then 3:33, then we had to get it down to 2 hours. But you have to understand that when I say we're in the greatest information war the country's ever been in, what we're actually in, and this is coming from a guy that spent 20 years on the border. We are in a 5th generation war right now. This is total war. This is, as General Jerry Boykin has said for years that it's asymmetrical warfare. It's complete warfare. And January 6th was just one battle in this larger war. You take a look at the border. What's going on the border? Well, the border is the key to our national defense. And you're seeing not only the trafficking, which in numbers we've never seen before, the human trafficking, but look at the fentanyl, the heroin that's coming over that's now killed just under the Biden administration. It's killed more people than we lost in Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq combined. This is the war in the United States of America, and you have a pandemic that comes in and changes the course of an election with paper ballots and fraud. And then on top of that, because the pandemic, you have a vaccine that comes in, and the vaccine comes in, and it's the most brilliant stroke against our United States military that's ever happened. Because what happened is you have your hardest chargers that refuse to take the vaccine, our special forces guys, our free thinkers, they're mustered out. They're no longer in the military. Those that decide to stay, many of them are now vaccine injured. I've talked to more than 2 people that have told me that the U.S. military's ability to defend against a foreign threat has been degraded between 23 and 37% without the enemy firing a single shot. Now, this is infiltration at the highest level because it was our own government that mandated this policy that helps our enemies. You see how this is much part of a bigger war to take down the United States of America from the inside out?
So Chris,
it makes me so angry.
This is not only happening in the United States. I mean, if you've seen what happened with the election with France, I mean, the people are pretty upset right now. I think this is probably like a global issue that's going on.
And I don't get those French guys. I've been to France, Japanese, and I don't. What's wrong with a 90% income tax? I mean, come on, guys. It's for the benefit of the country. Let's go.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I did have a question for you as well. I don't know if anyone else did, but I'm sorry to interject. I apologize. I wanted to know: have you been able to get any traction from any conservative news outlets that want to, and I hear you laughing, so I know my answer, but I wanted to ask for our audience.
No, so this goes back to, I didn't answer your question about censorship. No, we are not on Amazon or Apple. We could not make those deals. Obviously not Netflix. Obama's on the board of directors for there. And, even, I haven't talked to Vic or the general or Scott about this, but, the Flynn movie is on Apple. It's on Amazon, but yet you have to dig to find it. It's not put up in the banner. Everybody wants to see this movie. It should, every time you turn on Amazon, it should be there. They show the top 10 movies. Flynn movie should be in there. Okay. So, and when it comes to conservative organizations, no. There's people like you. There's people like One American News Network, and there's a bunch of influencers that have the cojones to do this. Everyone else is too afraid. When we did the first movie, Capital Punishment, people I know that run some of the biggest conservative organizations that I've known for 20 years would not run our commercials, and we offered to pay them money to pay their commercials. I had one organization that everybody knows actually refuse our check after we had done a deal. It was an $11,000 deal, and they were running so many episodes, and to say, sorry, we can't do this. And one of the people I know who's a good friend who heads up on these organizations told us, Chris, Nick, we'd love to get behind your movie. We'd love to push it. We know it's the truth. But at the least that's going to happen to us is we're going to lose advertisers. The worst that's going to happen to us is we're going to get sued, like they saw Newsmax happen to them. And we have a fiduciary responsibility to our stockholders. And my reply to both of these organizations were like, guys, you're supposed to be the leader in free speech. You're supposed to be who conservatives turn to for the truth. If you're too scared to go up to these guys, what chance do your viewers, what chance do the regular Americans have? And, these people were ashamed. They were ashamed and embarrassed, but it's the cost of what they had to do to continue to survive. And you have to, and that's happening right now. We're seeing, like I said, we're seeing the censorship online trying to get the movie out. I thought Capital Punishment was the most censored movie I've ever saw. The algorithms now that they're using against us and whatever they're doing to bottleneck people seeing this film it's beyond my comprehension. But when you have a conversion rate, when you start out the first day the movie comes out, the people who go to see the trailer and then watch the whole movie is between 50 and 75%. And then by day 2, that drops down to 0.03%. you know something's a little bit wacky. And that's part of the war on truth. This is what we're fighting. And as General Flynn points out, the battlefield has changed. It's just not a bad guy in a different uniform coming at you with an AK-47. You're being hit by all different areas. And one thing, there's two things I want to touch on that really upset me about this film that people need to know. First of all, it's the women's role in January 6th. Okay, so Roseanne Boylan, we have a eyewitness in the movie. He was actually just arrested last week. We have an eyewitness in the movie, Tommy, that says that he was there entangled with her while a police officer, Lila Morris, was beating her with a stick. And he believes it was the third blow that hit her in the head that killed her. He said after that, she stopped breathing, she went blue, and got very cold. That's one woman that went down. Ashley Babbitt, you're going to see in the movie, for those of y'all that haven't seen it, you'll see footage in there. Remember, she was a 14-year military veteran, Air Force veteran. She took an oath to defend the Constitution, defend this country. You're going to see in there from a different camera angle that she grabs the most violent guy that's in that hallway that's breaking the window with a military helmet. She grabs him. His name's Zach Allen. He pulls away. She throws a left hook. She knocks his Buddy Holly glasses off just seconds before they yell, "Gun, gun," and then she goes through the window. And her husband, Aaron, and I, we both believe that she was scared and she was trying to escape because she knew things were turning bad in there. And we think that's why she went through that window. I've been to that window in the film. You see us filming from there. We say a prayer there for her and the rest of the country. But from her vantage point, you could not see Bird over here. There is no way.
I kind of want to, I honestly, I want to push back a little bit, because if she's been in the military for 14 years and she took down or tried or even attempted to fight back, I don't think she was running. When she saw that gun, she went for it. I don't think she was running. That wouldn't have been in her spirit. I just feel that.
Yeah,
because
maybe Aaron also says maybe she's trying to get to higher ground to get a better observation of thing. But I don't think you're wrong. And this is, there's one person that could tell us what was really in her head, and that was Ashley. But my point is, she went down a hero. She went down defending this country. And they tried to first they wouldn't even say her name, the whole J6 commission. And then they tried to make her look like she was a traitor, a treasonous person, when it was just the opposite. So my point is, you have Roseanne Boylan who goes down. You have Ashley Babbitt who goes down defending this country. And then you have Victoria White, who's a single mom with biracial kids. She's not a racist as they tried to paint her. A single mom, biracial kids. She's at the front lines where they're trying to break the windows while you have infiltrators in there. You can spot these guys after watching the footage for hundreds of hours. These guys, they all have the same equipment. They're all dressed the same. They're all masked up. They got the glasses on. And these guys break in the window. She grabs him, pulls him down, and the crowds and the people around him, the other infiltrators, start to turn on her. Then the other guy, his buddy, gets up there, pulls the same kind of weapon out of his backpack, goes back to breaking the window. She pulls him down. Then his buddies turn on her. She's trying to defend the Capitol. Next thing she knows, she's caught at the tunnel, and you see this footage of her being dragged into the tunnel. I mean, she almost goes down and trampled. She can't get out of there. And then she's hit over 30 times by Lieutenant Bagshaw, 30 times in the head with a metal baton, and then he drops his baton, and he starts using his fist to punch this woman over and over in the head. She's bleeding from everything. This is a single mom from Minnesota. My dad was a cop. These things should never happen in the United States of America. But let me say, in law enforcement's defense, now this was not Capitol Police. This was DC Metro. As Tariq Johnson says, I don't know if you've had Tariq Johnson on your show. Tariq Johnson was a former Capitol Police lieutenant. He was in charge of the ground forces on January 6th. And as he says clearly, he says, everybody on the ground that day, the MAGA people, the Capitol Police, we were all set up. And then as it goes in the movie, we show the intelligence that was come that would have, they could have been prepared for. The J6 never had to happen, but it was stalled, and it was stalled by Yoganada Pittman, who was rewarded for her activities after this was done. With a really cushy job back in Nancy Pelosi's district. So you have to look at this as an operation. This is an operation run with military precision. That was weeks or years in the planning. And if you see the film, you'll see how we put out the you need to look at who the architects of this were. Who are the powers behind what happened? Did they use the bloody insurrection, the coup that took over Ukraine in 2014? Was that a dress rehearsal for what happened on J6? Were there some of the same players that were in Ukraine, Ukrainians? Were they in the United States of America? Yes. Were they in D.C.? Yes. Were they in D.C. on January 6th? Yes. Why were they taking selfies with Jacob Chansley, the Buffalo Horn guy, who's already pre-scripted to be the leader of the bloody QAnon insurrection army? I mean, there's all this stuff that needs to be investigated by people with way higher pay grades than Nick and I. But the biggest thing that could have happened that day, and this comes down to one guy disobeying orders. As bad as January 6th was, it is my firm belief they did not get what they want. And what they wanted was at least 100 dead Americans. And how that got screwed up was Lieutenant Tariq Johnson. He's on the radio. You can hear him calling, and he had already done orthodox, out-of-the-box stuff to protect officers and save lives outside that day. He's inside. He's saying he's asking permission to clear the Senate chambers and the House floor. He asked over and over and over again. Yogananda Pittman, the only person that can give him permission to do this, does not answer him. So finally, after about 20 minutes, he says, all right, I'm making the call. I'm taking responsibility. We're going to evacuate the members from both chambers. Why this is important? Because the SOP for the Capitol Police is you're only allowed to use deadly force when you're protecting bodies, when you're protecting senators, congressmen. Once they're gone, if it's just real estate, you're not allowed to shoot anybody. Mm-hmm. So because of Tariq Johnson's actions, if he could have done that about 10 minutes earlier, Ashley Babbitt would have still been alive. If he would have waited and gone 10 minutes later, as all those people breached the walls and came into the Senate, walked into the Senate, walked into the floor, you would have had a ton of dead Americans. You would have had American blood rolling down the halls of Congress. That's what I believe they wanted, because the First Amendment would be gone, the Second Amendment would be gone, and this country would not come back with it. I mean, look how much this has divided us now with all the propaganda and what they've done in this PSYOP as we are now. If they would have succeeded with the death count that they really wanted, the United States of America would be gone.
It's the grace of God.
Yeah, I've been watching the video, watching your movie. One of the things that astounded me that I didn't really connect before then is the way they're kind of hunting down, these three-letter agencies are hunting down now grandmothers that just happened to be in Washington, D.C. at that time. They're using, from what I understand, Chris, like the same technology that others, like in 2000 Mules, had said that we use to track the ballot harvesting, that they said, no, that technology doesn't work. Now they're using it to track down. We've got people in our small town here, and I'm talking grandmothers, that are just waiting for that knock at the door. I'm assuming you've been one of the few people to tell these stories of people that have been intimidated. You're one of them. How much more of this are we going to see in the build-up to the election? Do you think the election is one of the defining moments in whether or not we actually get to the truth of January 6th?
Well, it's like Lieutenant Johnson says, the truth will come out eventually. Will it come out before this election? Probably not. And that's why you're seeing our movie being so stomped on so hard. That's not by accident. As far as the arrests, that was another sinking thing that was just horrible about making this movie. I really thought, because of Capital Punishment and a bunch of other great journalists and other movie makers have come up, as the truth got out, that the FBI would back off and leave people alone. No, they doubled down. They put together a big task force with new agents right out of the academy. They're still in probation. They can't question orders. They've been told that you took an oath to protect the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. These are the domestic terrorists, the MAGA people. You have to go after them. You got to put them in prison. And the arrests are happening. They've said themselves. And Graves from the Department of Justice, Matthew Graves, he said, they're going to be going after thousands of people. And this is the same time that the FBI has gotten from Congress enough money to make a new facility that's bigger than the Pentagon. And their role has changed from law enforcement protecting us from an outside force to surveilling our own people. And it's not just the FBI. It's DHS. I mean, that day, ATF was out there. DEA was out there. There was a bunch of people out there that day that we all ran into on January 6th. And one of the things that the former FBI agent whistleblower Steve Friend says in the movie, and this is a guy that was on a pedophile task force down near you in Florida, and they took him off the pedophile task force to go after J6ers. And the first person they had him go after, he's like, I know this guy. I can call him up. We can go have lunch together. No, we're going to hit him hard. We're going to hit him. We're going to hit him hard. I can just bring him into the office. We don't have to go do that. It's not a thing. No, this is what we're going to do, and you're going to sign off on it. Wow. Well, Steve wouldn't sign off on the operation. That was the beginning of the end for him. But for over a year, he had been documenting the FBI making a registry of Christians. And as a Christian, he thought his days were numbered at the FBI, and he told his wife, we need to start saving our money because I think they're going after Christians. And he refused to take the vaccine for religious reasons, the exemption, and a year later, he's gone. And this is a guy that was on. He was a SWAT team guy. He was on the tactical force that went after the guys with the whole Whitmer scandal. Remember that, the kidnapping plot that was going on? And he's like, we went in there hard because we were told, we were briefed that these militias had near FBI level training, and that's what we were going up against. So we're all our adrenaline's up. We're going in to get these guys. And then it comes to find out that over half the guys they're going against were either FBI agents or their assets. And the reason they had peer training was because it was the FBI undercover that trained these guys.
Wow. You know, in watching your film, we understand that there's been a lot of people that are hurting because of what happened, because of the setup that happened on January 6th. But what touched me also, Chris, is that the life lost didn't stop on that day. You have patriotic Americans, those that have served in the military, that suddenly saw themselves being charged with, or possibly charged with, terrorism. That just hits you in your gut as a patriot. And a lot there was one in particular that I know really couldn't handle that. We've had multiple deaths, people that just can't live with what the government's trying to do to them. I wonder if you could, just in a couple minutes that we have left, maybe talk about those stories.
It's like Matthew Perna, and Matthew. We had a much larger segment about him in the film. Matthew couldn't take it, and it was the 1512 charge, which has been thrown out. Everybody knew that charge was bogus, but they used it to bully the people into taking a plea bargain on these lesser misdemeanors. And it was the 1512 charge they put over Matthew that just put him over the edge, which is why he killed himself. There have been numerous suicides about this. And real quick, what I want to explain to you is actually happening is, I don't know if you remember under the Obama administration, Janet Napolitano was the head of DHS. She puts out a white paper. I'm giving you the 40,000-foot view. She puts out a white paper, a fusion report, which is basically what the federal government uses to interface with state and local law enforcement. In this report, they said, and this under the Obama administration, that the three greatest threats to the security of the United States of America were pro-secure border enthusiasts, Christian pro-lifers, and returning veterans. And we start making this movie, and we're interviewing all these people that are in prison and these decorated military guys. Who are they? They're pro-secure border enthusiasts, they're Christian pro-lifers, and they're returning veterans. This is how you fundamentally transform a country. You take what is the best of us and you turn them into the enemy and you take them down. We're seeing this happen in real life, in real time.
True. And so when they say it, when Obama said it, we probably should take them at their word. We, Chris, we are all out of time today, but we always like to, we always like to end in prayer, because, you know, we have the freedom and liberty to do that here. We are a free speech platform, but we do believe that God is using us and using you for this time to be delivering that free message to the American people. So will you join us in prayer, Chris? Awesome. And guys that are watching, please join us here today. Whew, heavy topic. And ladies, if you want to join in, you let me know. All right. Father God, we just we come before you today. We're grateful for this time with these wonderful women and with our guest, Chris. We're thankful for this platform, Lord. It's healing when you're able to talk about the issues and the truth, Lord, that I know you want to deliver to not just the American people, but across the globe. Father, I have a feeling that this has been going on for a long time, and a lot of us were either desensitized to it or just were unknown. We didn't know that this was happening. Father, I know that your goal is for us to be able to know the truth, to be able to heal, especially these J6 prisoners, those that are currently being held, their families, people like Chris that have lost so much. Father, I'm praying that you open the eyes and ears and hearts of those across our country today, Father, that they could put down political differences, ideological differences, and just get back to being humans, mankind, to be able to feel for each other. And Father, I pray that the things that have been done in the dark will be exposed into the light, Father, that you will expose the corruption. You'll expose the things that have led to unnecessary bloodshed. Father, that you'll bring this land and the people that inhabit it to their knees to be able to worship you, Father, and to say, Lord, that they want to turn their hearts to you. I pray especially for those that are in prison right now. I pray for that you would strengthen them, give them hope, that, Lord, you would bring about the warriors like Chris who are going to share this story far and wide. I pray, Lord, that you continue to give us the platform to do so. And, Lord, I pray that you would hear our prayer and heal our land. We ask this in Jesus' precious name. Amen. 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 Thank you so much, Chris. Can you let our viewers know where they can, I'm not sure if you're on social media or where they can find out more, or even let's give them the website for the movie too.
You can go to hisglory.tv. That's the best place to go. And we do have a website, which is thewarontruthmovie.com. But you can also go to hisglory.tv. And what you can do there is you can also see Capital Punishment for free if you want to see both movies. But come check out His Glory. We're doing amazing work there. Pastor Dave is a fearless leader. He's a former Marine, and nothing scares this guy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. We hope to have you back on the home front soon. Thank you for joining us.
God bless, ladies. Honored.
God bless. Thank you. All right, guys, that's going to be it for us here on the home front. If you want to see more content, go to thehomefront.tv. Until then, we'll see you next time.